In this last chapter, we think more explicitly and hopefully more carefully about the role of government in the economy. And of course, government is necessary to provide the rules by which markets can function. So if there were no government to assign private property rights and to protect those and to adjudicate disputes fairly, we couldn't even talk about a market. So there is a role of government in that sense, but there are roles in the economy beyond that for the government, arguably. The problem, of course, with government is we create this institution that has extraordinary power, and it's an institution made up of humans with their own self-interests, not always in line with the public good, and so such a powerful institution can be a problem. And in particular, the government is capable of producing a package of goods and services and making people buy them on the threat of imprisonment. So there's any of us looking at what the government does with our tax dollars could find a significant subset of activities that we wouldn't personally support, but yet if we just paid for the goods that we do support and not the rest, we'd be in jail because we would have fallen short of paying our full tax bill. Also, the government can draft people and send them off to war to die. So it's the government has this tremendous power. So we certainly want to be careful about overextending the role of government in the economy. But there are many things that no other body but a government can do, and one hopes there's ways to get to put a proper set of controls to keep government from becoming too abusive. Of course, in a democracy, theoretically, we can always vote people out that don't perform properly. We've got a system where the courts and the president and the Congress all have checks and balances, and that's all an effort to control abuses of government power, but you don't have to look far to find examples where we just haven't gotten it right. All right, well, let's think about what kinds of things in an economy we might need a government to do. And we start with a taxonomy of goods. So there's two characteristics of goods that we want to think about here as we think about where markets can work and where they can't. One is excludability, and we're going to categorize goods based on their non-excludability or their excludability. So if we have non-excludable on the in the labels for the rows, if the non-excludability of a good is low, well then it can be excluded. That is to say, if I buy the good, I use it, I can keep you from just benefiting from it. And on the other hand, if a good is highly non-excludable, well then, if someone in the economy has a good, whether it's from in the public domain, just God-given, like a fishery or a public forest, or whether I make it, like a TV signal. If it's non-excludable, it's really hard for anybody to be kept from enjoying the good, whether they pay for it or not. So this non-excludability or the excludability can be is a key characteristic of goods in this categorization. Then the other characteristic of a good is whether it's rival or not. And here we've got things, we're going to talk about the level of non-rival. I don't even know what the suffix on that would be to make it a noun, but the degree to which a good is non-rival is an important consideration as we consider whether markets can allocate that good in a desirable manner or not. And here, rivalry simply refers to the degree to which my consumption of a particular good reduces the availability of that good to others. At the extreme, when a good is non-rival, my enjoyment of that good does not in any way reduce the availability of that good to other people in the economy. And so that's going to be an important characteristic. Well, if a good is very excludable and its consumption or use is very much rival in nature, then we're in this quadrant, and we are talking about private goods. And these are the goods we've, for the most part, been talking about all semester. So, whatever, loaf of bread. If I buy it if a store offers it for sale, they can use the law of private property rights to keep other people from walking in and just taking the loaf of bread and running out. People do that, shoplifting, but they get in trouble for it. So that's against the rules. So it's excludable. I can keep, if it's produced, I can keep you from getting it to a large degree. It's very, very rival in nature, right? If I eat a piece of bread, it is unavailable for anybody else to eat. So that's as rival as a good gets. And I'll leave it to you to think of other examples of goods that are both rival in consumption and excludable. And indeed, that's a large share of the goods we see around us. You just start rattling them off. Shirts, toothpaste, coffee, whatever. Looking around my office here. And on the other end of the extreme is a set of goods and services that we haven't really talked about much yet. And those are goods where they're both non-rival, that is to say, if they're available to one person, they're equally available to all, and they're non-excludable. If they're produced, you can't keep people from enjoying them. So these are called public goods. And, for example, the quintessential example is national defense. It's very hard to keep my house protected from missile attack or invasion from foreign troops without protecting my neighbors, and so on. But also goods like broadcast TV. Once that signal is out there, it can be drawn in by anybody with an antenna, and the fact that a bunch of people have antennas doesn't diminish the quality of the signal for other people. So there are it's a little harder to think of public goods, but one can do it. Other goods aren't pure public goods in the sense that to some degree they're excludable and rival, but nevertheless they have a lot of public good trait. So we think of the overall health of the population as the public good, but things like immunization programs, we could keep people from coming and getting an immunization. If they don't have health insurance, they don't get it. So it's excludable. Also, it's rival. But nevertheless, that somebody gets a shot, that medicine isn't available for other people. But that the overall healthy state of the population is the public good that's being arrived at, and that is both non-rival and non-excludable. We can the working judicial system, private property rights that are fair and enforced. These are all part of a social situation that if it exists, it's non-rival and non-excludable. And so we get a lot of goods related to those goals, a highly educated public, etc. A lot of goods related to bringing about those public situations are sort of have public good aspects to them. If there's something that's very rival but non-excludable, we've actually talked about that before. That's a commons good. So fishery of fish that move around, we can assign property rights to oyster beds and that kind of thing, but when we're talking salmon that go all over the ocean, tuna, you name it, fish that move around, it's very difficult to assign private property rights without some sort of government or some other agency of the people at large, which ends up being government, to enforce whatever rules we come up with. So goods up in this sector are goods that require, or we're going to argue require, some level of government presence in order to provide at a reasonable level. And then finally, there's this category where the good is excludable, but it's non-rival, and these are called. There's a lot of words for them. Here, our text calls them collective goods. Sometimes you see these called club goods, but cable TV. Uncrowded golf clubs. If you've got a club with enough members that anybody could go out and enjoy that good at any time. Uncrowded, swimming pools, etc. Cable TV, pay-per-view. Anyway, I'll leave you to think up more examples. I'll close with one more. That is roads. Crowded roads are crowded public roads are rival but non-excludable. So they end up being like a commons good. But uncrowded roads have this public good aspect. They're both non-rival and non-excludable. Of course, we could turn them into private roads and exclude. So these are all decisions we make as a political group of people. We make these decisions jointly as part of a political process.